homework. Who wants to start? What were our page numbers?
164 to 174.
164 to 164. We only had to read one page.
No, 174 to 179.
Jody, I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
Page 179 had to be my favorite quote in the whole book because it really resonated. There is always blue sky above the clouds, even on the most dismal days. And this ties into, Jody, what you were just talking about. It's the leader's job to inspire others to see it. I just thought that so hit home because, just as an example, when we first started going to Grange, all they could see was negative, negative, negative. And we kept saying, there's positive. You just got to have a new attitude. And I think many of the Granges, Wallingford and others, are seeing that. And, you just got to convince people there's going to be, a better days ahead and inspire them to see it.
That reminds me, in church today, the minister to see better days, right? And he quoted the gentleman, the first American to scale Mount Everest, and he said, the reporter asked him, "Why did you do it? Why did you climb Everest?" And of course, everybody expected him to say, because it was there, right? And he said, "Everybody faces a Mount Everest every day. Mine was just literally the mountain."
Jody,
Phil.
I think the quote that I thought was the best quote, and this was actually on page 178, and it says, "To lead others, we first have to lead ourselves." And I think some of us forget that if you want to lead others, you've got to set the trail.
Finish that paragraph.
That whole paragraph, yeah.
And that requires courage, to be humble, to be self-aware, to honestly look in the mirror. Then we can mirror the behavior we wish to see in others.
That is a very powerful paragraph, isn't it, Phil?
It really is. I mean, those of us who have had the chance to be in leadership positions understand that. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is look in the mirror and say, I made a mistake. We need to change direction.
We're going to go at Ailey and then Marcia.
It's Eiley, by the way.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I figured it's probably time for me to start correcting you, Eiley. So 167, just one line out of a sentence, half of the sentence, it said, "We must continually refocus our lens." And I think that really speaks to you have to be adaptable, and you may need to adjust goals for, long-term goals, short-term goals. You need to remain fluid in order to keep the flow going forward. And I had never I wasn't familiar with the song. I actually listened to it, several versions of it, while I was reading the pages, the homework pages.
Marcia.
It's the leader's job to inspire others to see it. I think that's important because it talks about leadership, that the leader is supposed to inspire others.
Anyone else?
I was looking at the 4 motivators. I thought that was really interesting. And the last one was like a negative motivator: avoidance, fear, rejection, and failure, default. That's our default when we're overwhelmed. I thought that was pretty interesting to look at it like that. That's one of the motivators, just going the wrong way. That was 169, maybe let's see. No, that's on 178.
But no, those are good points. Anyone else?
Dorothy.
Yes, ma'am, Dorothy.
Yeah, I was on page 163. I think it's 163, yeah, where he says, never, I guess it's 165, never walk alone. And he talks about whenever something unsettling happens, we always look around for others. And I sat back and I thought, I don't think so. I haven't looked to see what others do because I kind of think I'm never alone, number one. I'm always with the Lord. And I always stop and say, what would you like me to do? Or where would you like me to go? And sometimes there's no answer, so I don't do anything. And then a little while later, the answer comes. So I'll tell you what, I must be blessed or either blessed or really ignorant. I never follow other people. I do what I want to do. And I find that I do have to apologize sometimes when I do something that someone else may not like, but it's what I needed to do at the moment. So I guess I'm not afraid to say I'm sorry. It's I had to do that, and most of the times I'm okay. Now that I've gotten older, I don't give too much. I don't care too much what other people think because I'm just doing things around my 10 acres of property and taking care of my animals and going about my business.
Anyone else?
Jody,
Yes, Bill.
if we look at the picture on page 166, a lot of us who have gone through types of leadership classes, we get this, and they say to you, what do you see in that picture? And I just wonder what people saw in that picture.
I was disappointed it wasn't a wine glass.
Were you?
I always like that particular picture because to me, the thought that comes out is you see the vase, but then for me, immediately I see the two people looking at each other, and it signifies to me that the message of that is that you have to pay close attention, like those two people are paying attention to each other to see what's really important and not get distracted by what's a little bit less important.
And and just to answer that, Rob, I see just the opposite. Every time I've looked at that picture, the first thing I see is the two faces. And then I said, wait a minute, there's also a vase. So it's, it's how you pick that image up that makes you think about it, I think. I just didn't know what other people saw. That was all.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of fun homework. So homework is a loose term. I'll have to look up the name of the video, but there's a really cool video out there about, and I'm going to spoil it. Okay, and you're supposed to count the number of times the ball is passed, is the goal. And at some point, someone dressed in a gorilla costume walks into the circle. And it's amazing how many people don't see the gorilla because they're only focused on the task of counting the ball, how many times the ball is counted. And people come and go out of the circle. You look it up. It's really, really interesting because you will probably fall into one of those three categories. You see the people come and go, you count the number of times, or you do or you don't see the gorilla. And it really gives you a good insight on how you witness what goes on around you, which is an excellent segue into where we're headed tonight, right? Because as a leader, you have to be observant to everything around you, especially conflict management. Right? Conflict is good. Healthy conflict is really, really, really good. With healthy conflict, we have respectful debate, we have respectful deliberation, and we come to a joined solution and resolution. So we should never look at conflict being a bad thing. Conflict, though, is a bad thing, because when we talk about conflict, we talk about Dorothy not getting along with Donnie, right? And Dorothy sees the topic this way, and Donnie sees the topic that way, and neither of them are going to see the middle of the road. So let me pause here for a second and just remind everybody, we did have a speaker this evening who unfortunately had a family emergency. So we are going to make do, and we're going to talk about how do we get Donnie and Dorothy to respect each other's opinion without alienating them as individuals, because they both are probably bringing very valid points to the table, but neither of them are listening to it. So we as the leader, we need to step in. We need to help them see a middle ground, because I bet you 90% of what they're arguing about, they agree on. Okay? That's where we're going to go tonight. Does anybody, and I realize you only had a few hours, does anybody have a situation that they want to share where they were in a situation where they had a mediator or a mentor that didn't do a good job, or they needed one, or they were the mediator or mentor, and when they look back at it, they say, ooh, I should have, I could have, I didn't.
I'm in that situation, in that I started to talk about it last week, but you wanted to put it off until this week. I have a wonderful mentor at the Greenfield Hill Grange, and she's doing a phenomenal job. And yet we're in a situation where I'm the new master, and I was voted in almost unanimously, but now some of the old guard are, I think, worried that I want to do things differently than they've done. And I do, simply because we've grown our membership. We're a viable Grange. We're so lucky we have so much. And yet it is important for us to maintain our membership and not lose members. I'm trying to balance to, the old guard and then the new members who are coming up with some fabulous ideas as to how we can grow the Grange and move forward. And
Dorothy froze.
they're just, I don't know quite what to do, because
Poor thing keeps freezing.
we're welcoming. What's wrong?
Or is it just me? Does she keeps freezing?
No, she keeps freezing.
Okay.
Stephanie, cut your video. Just cut your video.
Okay. We'll see if that's any better. Did you guys hear any of that, or shall I start over? I just hate to bore people with my issues. Can you hear me now?
So why don't you start over? But that way we know we didn't miss anything.
Okay, so we have new members who want to do some different kinds of fundraising. Our old-fashioned,
No,
our old method. It's just there's people who want to do other things, and they would be different ways of fundraising. And at the same time, fundraising is always an outreach to the community. Get your name out there. Tell more people, learn about the Grange, which is all that we want to do. And I'm just having such problems because I can't enact any of the new things because the old guard is so upset about it. And my mentor wants me to soft pedal it. and yet I understand that. But on the other hand, I'm trying to keep these new members engaged and happy and feeling like they're contributing and that they're
Let me ask you a question. What is the average age of these legacy members?
oh gosh, I don't really know. When I say old guard, I'm not saying that they're old. They were just members when I was a member, when I became a member 8-9 years ago.
They're in their 70s.
I think we're all, yeah, we're all in our 70s.
Yeah, but I'm saying not you specifically, Stephanie. I'm saying who you're talking about is in their 70s.
Yeah, most of them are in their 70s.
Except their kids that are probably in their 50s.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the new members are in their 50s and 60s, and maybe even a couple of them are younger, which frankly makes me very happy because you want to bring youth into the Grange.
Stephanie, your Grange started at
but they're the
30
ones
members.
that want to, do corporate solicitations. I'm sorry, it started at how many members?
You started at 30 members at the beginning of the Grange year, and you closed out the year with a plus of 13 new members.
I don't hear anything.
So there's going to be conflict because there's so many new members. Wonderfully, there's so many new members in your Grange. So you almost have to say these older members are going to have to deal with it.
I know, but they're not. So how,
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't want to lose them.
Of course not.
Stephanie, could I, and Jody, I'm sort of jumping in here, but could I make a suggestion to you that might be helpful? I would talk to Rob, the state president, and see if he could set somebody up to come in and you guys just have a work session meeting talking about, this is where I want to see our Grange grow. And you don't do it at a regular meeting. You set up a special day that it's a roundtable discussion like we're having, but you have somebody there that acts as the mediator. You do not step in and be the mediator. Somebody else comes in and sort of sits there with you and said, and you throw out these ideas saying, wouldn't it be great to do this, this, and this? And I think if you do that and you include everybody, you'll find people will start coming together. That's just a suggestion. I don't know if that's worked for others, but I would sort of throw that out.
Thanks. I wish I could get more than every other word, but I've written down a few of what you've suggested. I'm not hearing you all the time, unfortunately.
Well, maybe the worthy master could speak with you sometime after tonight's meeting and talk that out.
Does anyone else have any suggestions for Dorothy? How would you handle it? Dave, you're involved in 2 different Granges, and Granby has an influx of new members. But what's interesting is those members are possibly legacy members from another Grange. So you have the philosophy of this Grange and the philosophy of this Grange and new members all in the mix. What would you suggested, Stephanie?
Well, I think Brother Phil's advice was quite good, and but I know in Riverton Grange, that is my home Grange, that is a challenge between legacy members and new members. And so what we have tried to do is find some common ground where folks can get engaged in activities. And Phil, I'll give you positive credit. You're the one that told me 4 or 5 years ago to get involved in the community service, because that's where I saw the passion in folks at Riverton Grange. And so we got involved with the Veterans Initiative. You and Maureen, I think, really started the dictionaries, but we've carried that. But find common ground, and as you get to know your members, and I think, George, even yesterday when we all got to sit around and talk during the Grange Fair, it's really great as you get to know each other, because no two people are ever going to agree. And if you can find that common ground, but today we had Granby Grange. And one of the things we talked about at Granby Grange was we had a work party inside and out today. So members came 2 hours early to work. We have the garden. Some of our produce in our Granby Grange garden won prizes in Riverton Grange Fair. So that finding of common ground. And again, Phil might and George also might disagree with me, but try not to push too hard in a direction unless, and I love that thing about looking in the mirror, unless you're willing to really make sure it's gonna succeed. Just like we took on the Veteran of the Month initiative and we're now on the 26th month, and there's been conversations, do we want it to go for another year? And we've gone around and round on that, but we think now we're going to keep it going for another year. But again, you want to make sure that your members, both legacy members and newer members, are bought into that. But I think Phil's thing, outside your normal meeting, have a conversation. And one of the things, and I know people will tell you, for me it's difficult, but really listen to what they're telling you and see what the common ground is. That's what I'd recommend, Jody, to Stephanie.
Anyone else? Because we're helping each other become moderators and mediators and mentors. So if anybody has anything else they'd like to suggest to Stephanie, always can talk about it one-on-one after, or two-on-one and gang up on her. But
Jody, one other thing, and I don't know Stephanie's
recommend-
Grange, but Debbie Vale, coming from the state master, Rob Buck sent Debbie to Granby Grange, and she's really been great working with the legacy members and the newer members. And I really meant that, Debbie. We missed you today, and we were talking about how much we enjoy the input that you so quietly kind of give behind the scenes to make sure that we are meshing together. And I think that it has been helpful having somebody, like a Debbie, that is quiet, unassuming, but, has really been helpful not only to our current he calls himself a master, Ron, but our incoming president, who is Philip Marshall. And but Debbie's been a great blessing, Rob Buck. So thank you for sending her our way.
You're welcome. And I'm going to hold you to that because I want to make sure you're listening to what she has to say. So keep those ears open or I'll hear about it. I have a ruler that I can, put your hand out and slap the back of your hand if you misbehave, Dave. But
Stephanie, does any of this help?
Yes, thank you. It is helpful. And I'm just glad we're recording this because I can listen to this afterwards and fill in some of the blanks.
I think getting back to the talk about resolution.
The audio
meeting,
is maybe 50-50 for me.
I think with Greenfield Hill, the best thing would be, as Phil recommended, to get outside of a meeting and maybe even get out somewhere outside of the Grange Hall, just on neutral ground. Because we did have one round table, well, it was a round table meeting of sorts, but it was during a meeting and it was in the Grange Hall. And I would say it went fair, but I think that idea of being on neutral ground and just out of your roles as officers and everything, just everybody sits down. I like that. So when we have meeting version number 2, we will do it differently than meeting version number 1.
So let me ask a question. How many of you, by a show of hands, consider yourselves to be good listeners?
Fair to good.
How many of you who consider yourself to be a good listener?
Consider ourselves to be what?
A good listener. listener.
I
So of those of you who claim to be a good listener, how many of you are developing your answer to what they're saying while they're talking?
not me.
So I'm gonna call poo-poo on all of you.
I will
Because
say,
we do, we form
to
our
a degree, you're always
we form our-
anticipating.
Exactly.
I
You're
do-
anticipating it.
What
Go
I've
ahead.
done, and maybe this comes from my background as the daughter of a silent Finnish man, is I do wait to formulate my answers until I have the whole story. I do envision how my stories and histories do relate to the person who's speaking. But I do, and I don't try to anticipate. My brother's also a stutterer, and perhaps it comes from that a lot of people try to finish the sentences of people who stutter. And this was something that, he's 12 years older than I am. I was trained very young not to do those sorts of things, to just wait and listen. So it's been an ongoing lesson in patience, because it takes a lot of patience to be a good listener.
So you said that you try to put yourself in their position as they're talking. You cut out a couple of times. I want to make sure that's what I heard you say.
I do try to put myself in their shoes as they're talking.
So that gives you the empathy for what they're talking about.
I
So
hope that is the
that
case.
you can honestly serve as a mentor. Right?
You actually,
If you
I don't know whose connection is bad, and I thought it was just me. I am getting most of the audio, but not all of it. So I didn't catch your whole sentence.
So the point I'm trying to make is that if you're able to put yourself, visualize yourself in their position while still hearing, you're creating empathy and understanding for what they're saying. So you're setting it up so that you can ask questions that lead to a positive resolution or a positive direction or whatnot. You're not telling them how you would do it. You're trying to understand their position, how they're feeling, right? Because a lot of conflict is just how you feel. I feel at this moment, so perfect example, right? We open our county fair in 3 days. I'm feeling very anxious tonight. I'm feeling as though that I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. Todd asked me a question about state Grange financing. Right? So we have to put ourselves in that person's, we have to listen with the empathy to understand where that person is coming from, because we got our own stuff going on in here. And it's easy to tell them what to do and move on. Right or wrong. I love that approach.
You're absolutely correct. You can't listen to reply, or you don't, it's not listening. You're not hearing what a person is feeling, because what a person's problem is exactly their perception. And what you should be doing is not telling people what to do, but guiding them to come to their own solution.
But then what do you do? I mean, I've reached out in many instances where I've got a member or two or three who are frustrated, angry, and my response is, what can I do to help? How can we make this better? And their
answer?
answer is nothing you can do. And I get that the wall is up and it's frustrating.
when people tell you that there's nothing you can do, I believe that that is because they believe that you have done something wrong and that you cannot fix what you did, and therefore that person, in insofar as their dealings with you, has reached the end of their rope. And I think at that point there's a point where you just have to back off and reevaluate your path and how you are impacting those people or person or persons, and perhaps change your path. Because if they're not willing to listen to you, obviously, to me, it seems that something has really teed them off and they've just shut you out. You're persona non grata, gone, history, not dealing with you no more. And it's a bad place to be in.
But then why are you going to they're coming to her with a complaint as the master of the Grange, or the master of the Grange makes a decision. They don't like that decision, so they moan and groan or complain to her. Then you're saying, well, then back down, and that's not right either, because if it's a common decision, all the members voted for it to do something, to go some way, that's the path they want to go. And then you're saying, well, he's upset, so back down so that he's not upset.
But I can tell you, no.
Hang on, if she asked him, what can I do for you to help solve this problem? And he says, there's nothing you can do. Then I say, I'm sorry then, because the problem is you're the problem. You're the problem. If you're not getting your way, then something else has to come from you to be a good Granger. And to me, that's where it has to be. And as far as like Jody was saying about listening part, when you listen to the story, if there's something that's being said that's wrong, then I already built my answer in saying it's wrong. But also, when people are asking for your advice or for you to listen with the empathy that we're pushing for, you always have to follow. There's Grange rules, there's Grange law, there's Grange, what the Grange does and all that stuff that you have to mix into the answer where they may not like it because that's not the answer they want to hear.
What I wanted to add to that, and I appreciate your opinion, I was speaking, Noel, out of knowledge of some of what's going on. And I think that perhaps in this instance, when those people came and said, ask Stephanie, I think what they want is not to be asked what can be done. They know what they want done. They're not hearing it. And again, I'm speaking out of a knowledge of what has happened, what has been said, what has been done. I think perhaps, Stephanie, sometimes you would be better off if you just listen to them, let them state their piece, and guide your future actions based on what they say, not necessarily. And I mean, I know from a fact that certain things have been done in that Grange that were not brought to a vote of the Grange, so that there was a feeling by these people on this one side of the quote unquote railroad job, if you would use such a term. I'm not saying that the situation is intractable and can't be resolved, but I think in one sense that people are talking past each other. I know, Stephanie, you mean well when you ask, what can you do? But knowing those people on the other side of the issue and them telling you what they told you, I kind of know where they're coming from. I don't say I agree or I disagree with either one of you, because it's not my intention to come in and tell you what to do.
No, and I'm not asking for that.
Well, no, I know you're not asking for that, but I can't tell you what I would do, because what I would do is what I would do, and I'm not a member of your Grange, so I have no place doing that. But I think there's got to be better listening.
The most recent, yeah, well, it's just a bunch of members came to me just a few days and cut down on the property. We didn't vote on it, and we wanted to say, well, the person who had the work done, who was the treasurer, and
This is really frustrating.
he did call me, and I actually got less money. And I feel like the trees did need to be cut. We're upset because there was no vote, and I'm going to have to deal with that tomorrow night. Again, trying to keep old and new happy about what was done. Because it was a huge expenditure and it was just done. And they're like, whoa, that shouldn't be.
Well, they're correct.
Well,
I mean,
but that goes back, sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
That goes back to what Noel was saying, right? At some point, you have
Can't hear
to,
anything.
with confidence, cite Grange procedure, Grange law, if you will, right? That it is a
Oh, for
requirement
sure.
of your, I'm saying this hypothetically. Everybody agrees that work needed to be done. I'm making this up, right? Everybody agreed that work needed to be done, but we have procedures. We have procedures here. If it's not affecting the direct safety of the property and the people, we need to go through the procedures of it needs to come up to the Grange needs to vote. They need to be aware of the work, right? We have proper channels. That goes back to what Noel was saying, right? If you can't, what's the word I want to use? I know what I want to say. I know what I want to say and I can't say it. Yeah, I just lost my train of where I was going with that. So
Well, while you're thinking and recouping there, I would like to
I
say that we've had the discussion before, me and Stephanie and certain other folk, and
normally tell me, no, right. So that's everybody's freezing up.
yeah,
This
everything
is
should come to a vote.
Mhm.
Everything that's done in the Grange property should come to a vote. We've been
Well,
through that before, and I'm sad to see that your treasurer didn't abide by that.
I know. I'm sad too, because I've got some
So-
angry members, and
When do you want me to correct you, Noel? Bob?
Say that again. What? Correct what?
Do you want me to correct you in private or in front of everybody?
Go ahead.
So no, if it's an emergency, it doesn't have to go to a vote, but it needs to go before the executive committee. The
Okay,
last
thank you.
Before the executive committee.
well, I thought with an
then a
emergency, you
report-
still call the executive committee.
What's that?
I thought with an emergency, you still incorporated the use of the executive committee.
He said that.
Yes, the master takes it to the executive committee. The president takes it to the executive committee in case of an emergency. The installation says in times of emergency or need for the executive committee installation.
And your treasurer is not on the executive committee, or should not be at all.
No.
Good.
No.
So,
But all I was saying is that we covered the issue with this Grange of bringing things to a vote,
Yes.
letting it
Yes.
be done democratically so that it doesn't appear that things are being done by this group over here behind the line, so to speak.
Yep. And that's unfortunately what this just was a case in point that has worried a lot of members. So
As well,
I'm
it
trying
should.
to think of the best way to deal with it tomorrow night, which is I don't want to make it the situation worse.
Well, If
but
you
I'm at a
didn't know
loss because
about it, Stephanie, if you did not know about it beforehand, then
Uh-huh.
I would I would not try to interject myself into myself being you into what was done without your knowledge. You have to make it clear to the treasurer that this is not how Granges work and cannot be tolerated.
Mhm.
You know, it's just
Yes.
unacceptable.
With just a little bit over 15 minutes left, I think we need to move on.
I agree.
Mhm.
Does anybody, so Timothy, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Okay, so you're a newer member. You're a member of a Grange that doesn't really have any legacy members, right? Because you guys were reorganized. How do you see? Because you guys are in a tough spot, right? Because to get off of the ground, somebody has to make the decisions and they have to move it along. How do you see your group gelling with being a quote unquote startup Grange? You're not the president or anything like that. You're not the secretary. I'm really interested to hear from you.
Well, something I was thinking about earlier when we were talking about this conflict that's going on, was just the way in terms of mediation and talking to people. It's when you're dealing with any kind of conflict, if the question is, maybe it's not what can I do for you, but who can I get to help you? Or when, if it's not what can I do, it's what can someone else do? It's if I can't talk to you, then maybe there's someone else that can. And again, getting someone else to, help the situation. And then the other thing I was thinking of with any conflict, especially when tensions may be rising, I would say trying to be less accusatory and talking things in more of a broad sense. So instead of using the word you or talking, you just explaining both sides of the story. So that for this situation that's happening, my thoughts were to explain what had happened, why it happened, but going ahead in the future, it's going to be done differently. It's a learning experience for everybody. It was a mistake, but it's not going to happen again. But trying to explain it from how it started, what happened, why it was done, and going forward, it can't be done that way anymore. In terms of our new group that we do have, I think we have, I forget exactly how many members, 40 some odd members or so. But one issue that we kind of brought up at our last meeting was who is, we see the same dozen or so members at the meetings and at some of the events. So just trying to figure out how to get those other people that signed up and paid the dues to actually come in and participate. So, but in terms of conflict, I think so far it's all been a pretty good effort on our part because our hall, it isn't in the best shape, and it's pretty much been all hands on deck. Whoever can do whatever they can. A few of our members have really stepped up. I know Eileen included, and Kathy and Robin helping in every little thing. But one thing with this chapter was saying how just every little bit of progress can help. So it's one thing I learned from one of the other chapters was it's, every member is going to want to do a certain thing or may not want to do this or that, but it's every little bit that someone can do can make, whether it's just painting a table, cleaning the hall once in a while, or doing some painting. A fresh coat of paint goes a long ways in making things looking fresh and new again. And I think for us, it's just been finding little things that can, that start bringing the whole picture together. We're eventually, hopefully by the end of the year or the end of the summer, I should say, we'll be getting our new roof. And then it's just, one step at a time. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question. I feel like I went off on a tangent, but
Nope, it was your dime, sir. So I wanted to hear your thoughts. So So we are starting to run out of time, and I am very sensitive to the hour, but the next person I'm going to put on the spot is our national master. Because, you know, we all deal with that 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 members, and where you have a little bit of conflict. This whomever sits in the leather chair in Washington, D.C. has 40,000 people 50,000 people that can be contacting them and complaining and nitpicking about, Sarah did this, Sarah did that. And so how do you still have a full head of hair, Betsy?
It's turning very gray and thinning. Unfortunately, this conflict goes on in so many of our Granges, and it's really upsetting and frustrating. We are our own worst enemy when we have these legacy members who think they own the Grange Hall and it's got to be done their way, and they won't accept any new ideas. That's killing us. So we have to find a way to resolve that, to have a model where it works and spread that around so that it's easier for the legacy members to accept new ideas and new people. Because if they don't, then they're going to be gone in a few years.
The workers, the new people are going to be the ones that are gone, not the legacies.
Yeah.
So I had a good friend who belongs to the great. We many of us.
If they haven't all been
have
chased
this
away
person.
by then, unfortunately.
Right. So this is a very crass thing that I'm going to say, but I had a good friend many, many years ago who made the statement about our agricultural fair when we had that. And the statement was, the one thing the agricultural fair needs is a few good funerals. And I honestly think that's the case in some of our situations, even not just the Grange, right? Sometimes these people, not to that extreme, sometimes these people have to go away. Would anyone be interested in a workshop if I can put it together? Sorry, Phil, I'll get right to you in a minute. If I can put together a workshop, and I'll have to talk to the board because it may cost us a little bit of money, but I think it'll be worth it, on managing a dysfunctional group.
Yes.
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 Okay. Then I
Yes.
will bring that up at our board meeting. I will bring that up at our next board meeting. Phil, you had your hand up, sir.
Well,
Yes.
I think that part of this we might have in our discussion in 2 weeks, but one of the things the Grange has, like most organizations are, and one of the things to help in when you do have conflict, is remind people that all discussions have to go through the chair. That you can't have discussions back and forth across the hall. That everything comes through the president's or master's chair. And what that does, it takes the feeling out of it. And you don't allow somebody to use somebody's personal name in disrespect. It's always brother or sister. And that way you don't get the personal feelings in. And when somebody doesn't come through the chair, you stop and say, wait a minute, it's got to come through the chair. And that's sometimes difficult, but I guess I'm saying that was taught to me when I first became master of my Grange, which was just 2 or 3 years ago. More like 50 years ago. But so I just think it's something to remember as the floor leader, whoever is running the meeting, everything has to come through you.
Okay, I have another question though. I'll keep it brief. I now have a secretary who isn't recording things that happened. And so, for example, this flagpole, which was an anonymous gift from one of our new members. She gave the money for the new flagpole. And we had a meeting 2 months ago and voted unanimously. And I even wrote down the members that voted. But then at the next meeting, she said, "Oh no, we have to vote on that. We didn't vote on it." And I had called and a couple of times, 9 or 10 members, just to confirm that they had indeed voted in favor. And they said, yeah, and it was unanimous. And so I didn't know what to do when the secretary said, no, that didn't happen. And I still don't know quite how to deal with it, because there are days when I begin to think that I'm losing my mind.
Does your Grange adopt the minutes at the close of the meeting?
We did adopt them. Yes, we always vote them in as we're supposed to. So, but
So
no,
Stephanie-
not into the meeting. It's when
Stephanie,
she said, "Oh no, we didn't vote on it."
So unfortunately, Stephanie, you keep freezing. So what we'll do is we'll have Todd, the state, assuming the state master wants him to, we'll have Todd, the state secretary, talk to you about
Bring it up
how
in the
the
minutes. We said
can
we
and
did.
should be done. Right.
Okay.
So, you know, just
It's
because I
all-
want you to be heard fully, and you keep freezing, and we're getting bits and pieces of what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah. This is
a procedural thing. I think that can be corrected, giving everybody a chance to correct the minutes at the end of the meeting, making sure all the motions and actions of the Grange are included in the minutes before you leave the hall. So
I
that
had no idea.
question afterwards, yeah.
Because that's also in the bylaws, so, of the
Yeah.
National Grange, so it's gotta be done.
But who reads those?
At least 4 or 5 times a week here.
We read them out, we have the secretary read them out loud at the end of the meeting, and then we vote to accept.
That's amazing. That's never happened at our Grange. So,
Yep, that's proper.
okay, we're going to do that. Thank you.
Well, we only have one legacy member, so we've got it easy.
You do.
Well, now try to be somebody in your 20s, managing a Grange with a large portion of your family that has pretty much run on autopilot for the last 40 years, and stand there with the gavel and have to wrap your father down.
Is that what your kids do, Jody?
That's my favorite part of the job.
Yep.
At least you
So-
admit it.
And I can't wait to do it in Pomona now either.
Well, I don't know.
The
I'm gonna
difference is that the father
Gives me fodder for my master's address for the Journal of Proceedings.
respects the chair, and when the gavel, that I shut up once in a while. So, All
You
right.
shut up, Jody.
I think I talk in my sleep, Bob. So,
Can I give out
Yep.
some homework for next time?
Sure.
absolutely.
We're gonna be talking about the digest and why it's important to follow the digest and why we have a digest and a constitution. And I said, well, I can't ask you to read the whole thing because we would fall asleep halfway through, but some of us have read most of it, but I can't say that I've read every single page of it. I think Betsy might have, but if we could read the Constitution, this is the National Digest, the Constitution, which is pages 6 through 9. I better put my glasses on so I'm reading the right thing.
Can you send out links to that in an email?
I'll do that, yes.
Thank you.
And then if we could read 2.5.1 to 2.5.7, which is non-partisanship.
You got to say it again.
2.5.1 to 2.5.7, which is nonpartisanship, and that's page 10 and 11. Page 14, 4.4.3, which is distribution of assets and a sale. 4.5 4.16.1 through 3, page 27, amendments to bylaws. I'm sorry, 4.4.3 wasn't the disposition. I didn't write down what that was, but I think that's membership, actually. 4.16, 1 through 3 on page 27. Oh, I said that, that's the amendment. 6.11 through 6.14, page 31, which is organization. And then chapter 13, which are page 52 to 59, which are the parliamentary rules in our digest. And then in the state digest, Articles 4 and 5 on page 1 and Article 6 on page 2.
Can somebody send that to us writing since we
I
can't
will
get it
send that
all?
out to you. Bill, could you
Thank
send me your list in writing? Just make
Sure,
sure.
I will.
Thank you. You'll get that in a day or two, everyone.
Okay.
With the link to the next meeting.
So I tried to hit some of the major points that we'll be discussing in the bylaws.
This thing always said about that the treasurer shouldn't be on the executive committee, is that in these digests?
It's not in the bylaws as such that I remember, but what you have to worry about is the treasurer should be bonded. And to have the same people making the executive decisions as the person who's writing the checks sometimes causes a problem. The treasurer and secretary should never be the same person. We've just always recommended in Connecticut that the treasurer and treasurer shouldn't be on the executive committee unless they're there for that purpose.
Todd, and what is our reading?
Our reading from the book is chapter 5 on empathy, and it'll be pages 180 to 203.
And Jody, I think it'll be helpful if they also
Does
have their
anybody-
digest with them at the next meeting or next to get together.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up?
Can we order the digest from National, or how do we get a copy?
I'll be emailing you an e-copy.
You could download.
Yes, you can go on the National Grange website and download a copy as well.
Okay,
But
thank
Todd
you.
will send you the link.
You won't be able to
All right.
find the state Grange one there, so that you will get that from me as well.
Well, Todd, you might be able to just put those pages out in the email.
Yeah.
So they could just see those pages.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So our next meeting is September the 10th. Because we have Labor Day coming up in 2 weeks. So we will see all of you fine people on September the 10th. And I thought this was excellent discussion. Hopefully everybody had a chance to speak. I apologize on behalf of our organized speaker, but we all know what it's like to have a family emergency arrive. So again, rely on one another, right? We're in this together. To quote the reading, right? The song that Ms. McKean, listened to, right? Nobody walks alone. Right? So with that, I bid you all a fond adieu.
On YouTube, there's the 1950 film of the whole musical, and the whole thing, like, it was actually very entertaining, the whole thing before and after, because the song is sung like by a person and then a group of people.
What was the film?
Carousel
Mhm.
by Rogers and Hammerson.
Your son.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night. Thank you
Good
tonight.
All right.